Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about, would you like to be telling a new story? Are you ready to tell a new story about your life? So if you're ready to tell a new story about your life, drop a yes down in the comment box, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Cheryl Piper, and this is live with CherylPiper.com. And, you know, I come on here on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Mondays usually I talk about a specific subject, and I try to keep it in that same space of our transformational growth, because we're all going through that. And today I thought, you know what, this just popped in my head, and I thought, let's talk about telling a new story. And so, that is what our topic is today. And please share this out with anybody that, you're thinking, oh, wow, we were just talking about stuff like this a few days ago. Just, take the share and just share it over to them in a private message and tell them to tune in. And if you're listening anywhere other than on the original broadcast, which is on my Facebook page, Cheryl Piper on Facebook, you can reach that. The address is up on the screen, at Cheryl Piper Sends Love. Jump over there, because I'll be able to see your comments. And then you can be part of the show. And that's what it's about. I want you guys to, interact, and we're going to just chat here for a few minutes and talk about telling a new story. So again, are you ready to tell a new story? So we're going to go ahead and get started with that chat today. Usually we talk about maybe 15, 20 minutes. That's it. So it's not a real long time. And I see we have some people logged in. That's great. Welcome. I really wanted to, hi, Catherine. How are you doing? Thanks so much. So last week, we talked about 3 secrets to transcend life challenges. And I thought, wow, that topic just really leads right into what we're talking about this week, which is, are you ready to tell a new story? And so if you remember last week when we were discussing, that's great, Catherine. I'm glad you came. I just stopped in, and you can catch the rebroadcast. I'm glad you popped in for a few minutes while you could. So last week when we talked about 3 secrets to transcend life challenges, we talked about acknowledgement. We talked about the fact that we have a choice, and we talked about courage. Those were the things that we discussed. And so when we pull all of those together into transcending life challenges, it really does help us to move into, thanks, Catherine, for sharing. That's great. It really does help us to move into telling that new story. Because if we don't face our challenges, then how in the world are we going to transcend them? We have to face our challenges, our lessons that come up in life. That is how we transcend. So moving into discussing, today, are you ready to tell a new story? And, I thought about this, and, there's probably a few things that I'd like to maybe step through in telling this new story. And those are forgiveness, conversations with ourselves, and then standing on your story. So we're going to kind of walk through those 3 things and talk about, hey, how are we doing? So we're going to talk about those 3 things and how they build telling that new story. So Let's go into the first one. First one being, hey, Kendra, how are you doing? I'm glad you showed up. So stepping into our first subject, what we're talking about in building that new story. And you guys, if you want to tell a new story and you're ready to tell a new story, drop a yes down in the comment box that you are ready to move forward telling a new story. So starting off with our first point, forgiveness. So when I say that word, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different things that come into your mind. So, feel free to drop comments in the comment box with whatever's coming into your mind with that. Because, a lot of people think, well, what's that all about? And talking about forgiveness. Well, in looking at forgiveness, that's really talking about, I got a little distracted from a comment. That's really talking about, letting go of that story, learning whatever lesson it brought to us and putting it behind us and letting it go. And so moving forward past whatever the pain was that we perceived from that situation. And I know if you guys have been listening to me before talking about this, I talk about something called the hindsight moment. And with the hindsight moment, that is when we have something happen to us that seems to be devastating. And then we're just kind of caught up in the pain of what it is, whether we're telling a story about it or we're just, caught up in talking about what that is. And then there's a hindsight moment where we move through that pain of whatever that situation was, and we see, oh, that's why that happened. If I wouldn't have gone through that situation, I wouldn't have gotten here. And so I call that the hindsight moment. And one thing that I've noticed is that the shorter that hindsight moment is, the happier we are. And so that has directly to do with stepping into that space of forgiveness. I mean, I know people that, situations happen to them and they're just like, wow, okay, I guess, I could do this now since that happened. And, I have time to do this now since that happened. And they just immediately step into that hindsight moment rather than, spending a long time in that pain. And we talked a lot about that last week. But when we spend a lot of time in that pain area, the longer the hindsight moment, the more pain we tend to be in. And there's so many, I know people that they may go through 10, 20 years still talking about a situation. Hey, Dale, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Tell Kathy, hey, and I'm sending her lots of love and lots of healing energy. And so there are people that can be stuck in this for years. They're still telling a story like it happened yesterday. And you can feel the pain in their voice and the anguish in their voice when they talk about it. And if you just met them, you would have thought that it did happen yesterday, because they speak about it in a way that it is still so fresh and raw in their memory. And when you keep telling that story and telling that story, you really give life to it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we're talking about conversations with ourselves. So in stepping into that forgiveness, we're going to let that story go and move into a different story about it. And this is where we can move into standing on our story rather than swimming around down in our story. And that's going to be our third point that we're talking about. So stepping into forgiveness of whatever the situation is and understanding that it has brought a lesson to us. Sometimes it's very painful. Sometimes it's very hurtful. Sometimes it's very joyous. But, there's a space for us to look at it as a learning lesson and stepping into that space. And that's how we move into the second point, which is, conversations we're having with ourselves. And this is a big one. I mean, I do a whole course called Conversational Cocktails. And, it talks a lot about the art and science of conversation. And one space that I spend a lot of time with people in, especially talking about conversations, is this point that I'm bringing up right now. Those conversations we have with ourselves. Because sometimes the things that we say to ourselves over and over and over again, if someone would walk up to us and talk to us that way, we would just be like, you need to get away. You can't talk to me that way. But yet, we can have this negative dialogue going on and a negative story going on in our head. And this is how we're talking to ourselves. Imagine if somebody were coming at you 24/7 like that, just negative, 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 with a story of being a victim. And this person did this to me. And I don't know why they think this, and I don't know who they think they are. Negative, negative, negative. Or you can be having the negative conversation with yourself of, you never do anything right. What were you thinking? What are you looking in the mirror and just like having this negative dialogue? And we can turn that story around. And when we turn that story around, this is how we start to change how we think. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with neuroplasticity, and I'm not going to go into a bunch of science about it. Some of the things that I teach in that Conversational Cocktails class, but this is how we change our thoughts. And one of the things that I have done to work with this, I'm just going to give you a little nugget here. One of the things that I have done to work on this is when those thoughts come into my mind that simply aren't my story anymore, I just say, no, you're not my thought anymore. This is not my thought. You are not my thought. You're not part of me. You're not part of my thoughts. And I move over to what that thought pattern is that I have now. And this is how we create that path. This is how we create. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever read Wayne Dyer's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I mean, that's an amazing book. And I have it on Audible as well, because I like to listen to things in the car. Okay, anybody who likes to listen to things in the car, because that really works well for you, put a thumbs up down in the comment box, or a yes. That would be great, because I know I am just so big on that. And there's so much to learn out there, and being able to just have it on my iPhone and then hooking it up to my Bluetooth in the car really helps when I'm driving around. So changing your thoughts really does change your life. This is how we're going to move into standing on our story rather than standing in our story. Because, and I'm going to explain that a little bit further, when we stand on our story, then we have moved through the lessons of it. We've been to that hindsight moment. We've come to that realization. We've let go of whatever anger or negative thoughts we were holding on about that situation or that person. And it's no longer part of us. We have moved through that forgiveness space. And when we do, that is the beauty that waits on the other side of forgiveness, is wisdom. Because when we step through that story and we can now stand on it, we can talk about it in a way that doesn't bring pain or anguish to us. It actually brings strength and wisdom to those around us that we're working to help with that story. So that is the big difference in telling the story. Where are you telling it from? Energetically, where are you telling that story from? Are you telling the story because you're still down in it and it's completely surrounding you? I mean, think about that. Just think about the analogy of that. If you're standing in down in the story, it's completely surrounding you. It's encompassing every part of you. And it could be very easy to create a victim type status from this because it's just simply surrounding you and it seems overwhelming. However, when we choose, and I use that word very purposefully because we have choices, and when we choose to move through the situation, to move through the story and reach the other side and let it go, then we can stand on the story and it has turned into wisdom. It has turned into strength. It doesn't bring us down or make us feel weak any longer. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat about today. And there was one more point that I wanted to bring up. I'm glad I made a few bullet point notes here. The brain loves a story. I did want to say that. The brain loves a story. And so if you haven't filled in all the blanks from the story that you're currently telling, the brain likes to fill that in and kind of make up a story. And I talk about that too in Conversational Cocktails. There's a whole analogy behind that. But the brain loves a story. So what story are you going to tell? What story are you going to choose to move forward with? Are you ready to tell a new story? And I'm hoping by going through these bullet points, it has helped to give you a few tools to be able to start moving in that direction. Looking at forgiveness, looking at conversations that we have with ourselves, and looking at standing on our story rather than standing in our story. So I'm hoping that those helped. And wow, time just goes so quickly. I love chatting with you guys. Oh, and also I put a new banner together and hoping that you guys like that. I really wanted to start branding myself with my colors. I liked the other one I created. It was fun, but this one actually, flows a bit more with my branding colors. And I love green and purple. So that's why they're my branding colors. So I want to just, talk a little bit about what's happening on Wednesday. Wednesday is interview day. And if you have anybody who has a situation, or anybody who's in a situation of addiction, or they're having challenges with addiction, please share my program with them on Wednesday. Dean Taraborelli is going to be my guest. And Dean is the founder of the Sanctuary at Sedona in Sedona, Arizona. And it is a non-12-step addiction recovery center. He has an amazing story and he has amazing insight into this area. So again, if you know anyone who is having challenges with addiction, please share the link to Wednesday's broadcast with them. I'm going to be putting that together later today and putting it out. I want to give a nice long time for that promo. And I think I'm going to actually be doing some live, just little live clips, little live blurbs, promos for that, because it's just so important. This is such a huge challenge right now. So I really think you guys are going to want to tune in and hear Dean. And also anyone living in South Central Pennsylvania, Central Maryland, or the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, check out Tri-State Woman Retreats. Our first meeting is going to be the last Thursday of April. This is happening every last Thursday of the month. It's just a time for women to connect and not compete. It's really designed around building community. So please check that out. if you are in the area. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope that you gained some insight in telling your news story. Again, I'm Cheryl Piper, and this is Live with CherylPiper.com. Have a wonderful day.